Laura, your parents already told us about your drinking problem. Officer Daniels' words sliced through me as he held up a half-empty bottle of Merlot he'd just found in my back seat, one I'd never seen before. Cold cuffs bit my wrists, but the real slap came when Mom and Dad walked into the station and calmly confirmed Marlene's story, nodding as if my spotless life had been a lie all along. Even HR emailed a supportive check-in before I'd made bail. Everyone believed her lies but me. What they don't know is I'm a compliance officer with a secret cloud of receipts and footage, and I'm about to use every shred of it. My name is Laura Whitaker, and I'm 45 years old. My life revolves around my role as senior compliance officer at First Metro Bank, where every decimal point matters. My younger sister Marlene, the family's eternal wild child, swings between crises and grand, gestures that our parents somehow always excuse. The scent of lemon oil and fresh coffee fills my kitchen each morning as I review my meticulous spreadsheets before dawn. My security cameras, linked quietly to cloud storage, capture everything. A habit born from years of cleaning up Marlene's messes. Tonight at dinner, she floated compliments across the table that made my shoulders tense, her smile too bright. The metallic tang in the air when she left felt like a warning, but let me start from the beginning. The evening traffic crawled under sodium orange streetlights as I headed home from another late board meeting. You know those nights when everything feels normal, routine, until it isn't? This was one of those. The flash of red and blue in my rearview mirror sent my heart into my throat. I eased onto the shoulder, hands at 10 and 2, like my driving instructor taught me 28 years ago. The officer approached, flashlight beam sweeping across my interior. "License and registration, ma'am." His nameplate read, "Daniels. We received a report of possible impaired driving in this area." My fingers didn't shake as I handed over my documents. "Officer, there must be some mistake. I haven't had anything to drink." The words came out steady, practiced, the same tone I used in board meetings when presenting difficult findings. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle." His voice stayed professional, but something in his expression made my stomach clench. "We received a specific tip about this vehicle." Have you ever had that moment when you know something's wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on what? That's how it felt standing there on the roadside, watching Officer Daniels circle my car. The traffic whooshed past, creating little eddies of autumn leaves around our feet. "Mind if I take a look in your vehicle, ma'am?" "Go ahead." I hit the trunk release without hesitation. What did I have to hide? The sound of the back door opening seemed unnaturally loud. "Can you explain this?" Officer Daniels straightened up, holding a half-empty bottle of Merlot by its neck. The streetlight caught the dark liquid inside, making it look like old blood. My mouth went dry. "That's not mine. I don't—" The words died as he slipped the bottle into an evidence bag, the plastic crinkling with finality. The dashboard clock read 8:42 p.m. when Officer Daniels began reading my rights. The metal of the handcuffs bit cold against my wrists, and suddenly the familiar hum of the highway seemed to tunnel away, leaving me in a bubble of unreality. During the ride to the station, I cataloged every decision I'd made that day. 2 meetings, 1 conference call, a lunch of salmon salad at my desk. Water intake, exactly 64 ounces, tracked in my fitness app. Last alcoholic beverage, a single glass of champagne at last month's charity gala. The booking officer's voice droned through procedures I'd only ever heard on TV shows. "You get 1 phone call." I didn't hesitate. I called my parents. They'd always been my backup, my character witnesses through every careful step of building my career. The phone rang 3 times before Mom picked up. "Mom, I'm at the police station. There's been a terrible mistake." "Laura?" Her voice sounded strange, strained. "We'll be right there." 20 minutes later, the station door opened. Mom and Dad walked in, but something was off in their expressions. These weren't the faces of parents coming to defend their reliable daughter. Officer Daniels approached them, notebook in hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, thank you for coming down. We need to verify some information about your daughter's recent behavior." Dad cleared his throat, not meeting my eyes. Marlene told us Laura's been having problems. She mentioned concerns about drinking? Officer Daniels pressed. Mom's hand fluttered to her throat. Her tell when she's nervous. Yes, she said Laura's been struggling, showing up to family dinners smelling like alcohol. We didn't want to believe it. The copper taste of betrayal flooded my mouth. Every word they spoke hammered another nail into the coffin of my reputation. I stood there, watching my parents nod along with my sister's lies, and felt the foundation of my life crack beneath my feet. Would you say this behavior is out of character for your daughter? Officer Daniels asked. Recently. Dad's voice wavered. No, Marlene's been trying to get her help for weeks. I wanted to scream, to shake them, to demand how they could believe Marlene over me. But I stood there, silent, as my carefully built world began to crumble. The holding room smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. I watched the clock tick past midnight while Officer Daniels supervised my third breath test. The machine whirred, calculating, before spitting out another pristine reading. 0.00. These things take time to clear your system, he said, but I caught the slight furrow in his brow. 3 clean tests should have raised questions about that bottle. You know what's worse than being arrested? Watching people rationalize away evidence of your innocence because they've already decided you're guilty. The release papers came with a string of temporary restrictions and a court date. Pending investigation felt like a collar around my neck as I signed my name, the same careful signature I'd used on 20 years of contracts and board approvals. The property clerk slid my belongings across the counter in a manila envelope: phone, wallet, car keys. My hands weren't shaking as I checked each item, but my spine felt like it was made of glass. One wrong move and everything would shatter. Mom and Dad waited in the lobby, looking anywhere but at me. The fluorescent lights made their faces waxy, artificial. "We're just concerned, honey," Mom said, her voice pitched too high. "Marlene told us how you've been backsliding recently." Backsliding? The word tasted bitter. "Mom, when have I ever—" "Let's not do this here," Dad cut in. "We can talk when you're feeling more yourself." The parking lot air hit my face like a slap, rain heavy and thick with bleach from the hospital next door. I declined their offer of a ride home. The thought of sitting in their cloud of disappointment made my skin crawl. Billboards flashed past as I took a rideshare home. Their messages blurred into meaningless shapes, my mind too busy cataloging the damage. 23 years of professional reputation, 15 on the hospital board, all balanced on the edge of a wine bottle I'd never touched. The kitchen light clicked on at 1:13 a.m., harsh against the granite counters I'd picked out 5 years ago. My phone chirped with notifications, including a voicemail from Dr. Roberts, my supervisor. "Laura, we need to discuss tonight's incident. First thing tomorrow morning, please." Sleep wasn't happening. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning through every interaction with Marlene over the past month. The Sunday dinners, the 2 sweet compliments, the way she'd lingered near my car last weekend, claiming she'd dropped her earring. The bathroom mirror at 5 a.m. showed me the same face I'd always had, the one that had earned trust through decades of careful choices. Dark circles under my eyes were the only visible crack in the facade. Morning coffee scalded my tongue, but I barely noticed. My phone buzzed with a text from Marlene. "Get help, Laura. We're all here for you when you're ready to admit the problem." I set the phone down before I could throw it across the room. The screen lit up again with another message, this one from HR scheduling a supportive check-in at 2 p.m. "Have you ever walked down a hallway knowing everyone's talking about you?" The hospital corridor felt endless, each step accompanied by sudden silences and darting glances. Whispers bloomed in my wake like poisonous flowers. Dr. Roberts' office was exactly as I'd left it yesterday, before my world imploded. The same degrees on the wall, the same plant I'd given him last Christmas, the same man who'd supported my career for 15 years, now looking at me like I was a stranger. "Laura," he began, folding his hands on the desk. We value you here. Your work has been exemplary, but compliance is non-negotiable in our position. I understand, I said, because what else could I say? The breath tests were clean, but they had a witness, my own sister, claiming a pattern of behavior. HR has emailed you the details, he continued. The board will review your case in 30 days. Until then. I opened the email over lunch, alone in my office. The cursor blinked next to phrases like administrative leave and performance review. 30 days to prove my innocence before the board decided if I was fit to continue. My coffee had gone cold, forgotten beside my keyboard. But something else was warming up inside me. Something that felt like steel replacing that glass spine. You know what's funny about crisis moments? They have a way of turning ordinary spaces into command centers. My living room, usually perfect for Sunday reading and morning coffee, became my personal war room that weekend. Legal pads covered every surface, yellow pages filled with timeline columns and notes that made my handwriting look like it belonged to a stranger. Have you ever noticed how choosing a lawyer feels like speed dating? I interviewed 3 before meeting Sandra Klein. She walked into her office 15 minutes early, took one look at my case file, and said exactly what I needed to hear. The breath test results are clean. That's good. But family testimony is poison, especially from a sister. She tapped her pen against the desk. The optics are challenging, but I've seen worse. We'll start with the basics. Chain of custody on that bottle and its origin story. I liked her immediately. No sugarcoating, no false promises. Just clear strategy and sharper eyes than mine. Your retainer covers 40 hours, she said, sliding the agreement across her desk. Let's make them count. That afternoon, my parents forwarded what they called proof. Screenshots Marlene had given them of texts I'd supposedly sent her. Messages begging for cash to buy wine, complaining about work stress, making excuses about missing family dinners. My stomach clenched as I scrolled through them. The typography looked almost perfect, the same font my phone used, the right bubble shapes. But something felt off about the timestamps. They showed conversations happening when I'd been in board meetings, times I could prove I'd been elsewhere. My gut screamed forgery, but proving it? That was another matter. For support, read my mother's email as she forwarded everything to HR. I watched my supervisor's response pop up minutes later, copying compliance on the thread. The hallway printer hummed, spitting out page after page of documentation. Each sheet felt like another nail in a coffin I hadn't asked for. We need device forensics, Attorney Klein said during our next meeting. Both phones, yours and your sister's. I handed mine over immediately, but when we requested Marlene's? Oh, I'm so sorry, came her syrupy response through our parents. I lost my phone last week. Must have fallen out of my purse at the mall. How convenient. The board review date loomed like a deadline for my own execution. I marked it on my desk calendar in red. Day 30. Every morning that splash of crimson caught my eye, making my coffee taste like metal. You'd be surprised how loud a quiet house can get at night. The ceiling fan in my study had developed a wobble I'd never noticed before. Each rotation seemed to whisper, tick, 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 time running out. The front porch creaked, a sound that used to be comforting when I'd come home late from hospital rounds. Now it made me jump. The Martinez's dog down the street, usually the neighborhood's most reliable alarm system, barked twice. My doorbell rang once, clear and sharp in the evening air. I approached cautiously, checking the security camera feed on my phone. The figure on my porch made me blink in surprise. Mr. Evans, my father's friend of 30 years, stood there clutching what looked like a manila envelope. When I opened the door, the same man who'd attended every major family event since I was 12 looked older than I remembered. His usual easy smile was replaced by something more serious. Laura, he said, I think there's something you need to know about the night before your arrest. Standing there in my doorway, fluorescent porch light humming overhead, I realized this might be the first friendly face I'd seen in weeks that wasn't paid by the hour. "Come in, Mr. Evans." I stepped aside, noticing how he carefully wiped his feet. Same habit he'd had at every Christmas dinner I could remember. "Coffee?" "Black, if you have it." He settled at my kitchen table, the same spot where he used to help me with algebra homework 25 years ago. The familiar scent of his aftershave, Old Spice, unchanged since forever, brought back flashes of summer barbecues and graduation parties. You know those moments when your world's falling apart, but muscle memory takes over. I found myself going through the motions: filter, grounds, water. The coffee maker gurgled like everything was normal. "Laura," he began as I set the mugs down. "I've been sick about this all week. Should have come forward sooner, but..." He wrapped his hands around the steaming cup. "I was there that Sunday, parked across the street. Your mother had asked me to drop off some old photo albums." My heart picked up speed. "What time?" "Around 7:30. I was about to head up your walk when Marlene's car pulled in." He took a slow sip. "She was on her phone. Speakerphone, actually. Couldn't help. Overhearing bits and pieces while I waited in my car." I leaned forward. "And?" "She had this bag with her. Soft-sided, like a gym bag. Watched her carry it straight to your car." His eyes met mine. "Didn't think anything of it at the time. Sisters sharing things, you know? But when I heard about the arrest..." My hands started shaking. I pressed them flat against the table. "The security camera. I've got one on the porch. Maybe it caught something." But even as I grabbed my phone and pulled up the app, I knew it was a long shot. The camera angle was meant for the front door, not the driveway. Sunday night's footage showed exactly what I feared. Mostly shadows, a few glimpses of elbows, nothing conclusive. The hallway clock ticked to 10:07 p.m. as Mr. Evans pulled out a piece of paper, sketching the positions of every car that night. His mechanical engineer's precision showed in every line: the angle of my oak tree, the way the streetlight hit the driveway. "Mind if I call my attorney?" I asked. He nodded, and I put Sandra Klein on speaker. "Mr. Evans," she said after introductions, "this is exactly the kind of detail we need. Laura, there's a grocery store near your parents' house, right? And street cameras at the main intersection?" 3 stores, actually." I grabbed a map from my drawer, circling locations. "The Safeway on Madison, Wilson's Market on 4th, and that new place, Market Fresh." "Good. I'm sending preservation notices first thing tomorrow. Security footage, register receipts, everything." Keys clicked on her end. "Mr. Evans, would you be willing to sign an affidavit about what you witnessed?" "Of course." No hesitation. That's why I'd always liked him. Straight shooter, even when it meant taking sides. I tried my parents next, hoping this new information might crack their wall of silence. The call went to voicemail. 10 minutes later, a text. "We need space right now. Please respect that." The kitchen light flickered. It had been doing that lately, like even the house was unsure of itself. Mr. Evans watched me process everything, his expression gentle but determined. "We started opening," I whispered, staring at the circled stores on my map. Tomorrow would be a marathon of security offices and receipt archives. But for the first time since those handcuffs clicked around my wrists, I felt something close to hope. "I'll drive," Mr. Evans offered, and I heard the unspoken message, "You're not alone in this anymore." In the quiet of my kitchen, with coffee cooling and papers spread across the table, we began plotting out tomorrow's route. Store by store, camera by camera, we'd reconstruct every moment leading up to that bottle appearing in my car. The truth was out there, in time-stamped footage, in credit card trails, in the small details people forget to cover up when they're busy spinning lies. 7 in the morning, and I was already sweating in my work blazer. The Safeway manager, Dave, according to his name tag, clicked through his computer while I tried not to drum my fingers on the service desk. "We keep footage for 30 days, he said, sliding a form across the counter. "But I'll need you to narrow down the time window. Can't pull entire days of recordings without corporate approval." I nodded, pulling out my timeline. "Sunday evening, specifically. I can give you exact hours." The drive time between my parents' house and mine was 22 minutes without traffic. I'd made that trip enough times to know. Let's say 6 to 8 p.m., Dave made a note. Fill out the request form, and I'll flag it for priority processing. He glanced at my business card, then at my face. Usually takes 3 to 5 business days. My stomach clenched. 3 to 5 days felt like forever when your career was hanging by a thread. The second store went worse. The assistant manager barely looked up from her phone. Corporate policy. Need a court order or police request. She popped her gum. Nothing I can do. I called Sandra Klein from the parking lot, leaning against my car in the morning heat. Store 2's a dead end unless you can work some legal magic. Already on it, she said. Preservation letters going out to all 3 locations today. They'll have to hold everything once those land. Keys clicked in the background. How are you documenting these visits? Time, name, response? Everything. I flipped open my notebook. 7 pages of conversations logged by the minute, each detail that might matter later. You don't spend 20 years in compliance without learning how to build a paper trail. My phone buzzed with a group text while I was reviewing my notes. Mom and Dad, both names on the screen, making my heart sink. We're worried sick. Please consider rehab. We've found an excellent facility. The rest blurred as my eyes burned. They'd already convicted me, hadn't they? 20 years of designated driving and morning runs meant nothing against whatever story Marlene had spun. Back at my desk, the HR portal's stark Arial font announced the board review date like a countdown clock. 30 days to prove I wasn't spiraling, wasn't the person they thought I'd become. By evening, my kitchen table disappeared under sticky notes and printed emails. Yellow for witness statements, pink for store visits, green for the timeline gaps we still needed to fill. I spread out 3 months of bank statements, highlighting every weekend transaction. Coffee shops, grocery stores, running shoes, but not a single liquor store charge. The clock on the microwave blinked 10:42 when I tried calling Marlene again. Straight to voicemail, like the last 6 times. I stared at her contact photo. Us at Christmas 2 years ago. Both smiling, both lying maybe. Hey sis, I said after the beep. We need to talk about this, please. My voice cracked on the last word. I was about to head upstairs when my phone lit up with an unknown number. 10:59 p.m. Hello? Is this Laura? A young woman's voice, hesitant. I'm Casey. I work at Wilson's Market, on 4th. My pen was already moving. Yes? I saw the preservation notice come through today. About Sunday night? She lowered her voice. I remember something. There was this woman buying a burgundy bottle. Merlot, I think. She was on her phone the whole time, talking about someone's car. The pen stopped. What did she look like? Shoulder-length hair, kind of reddish, designer purse, really nice heels. I remember because they kept clicking on the floor. Marlene to a T. She seemed, I don't know, nervous? Like she kept checking over her shoulder. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. The call log showed a 3-minute conversation with a number I immediately saved. Proof. We finally had a lead on actual proof. Sitting there in my kitchen, surrounded by paper trails and timelines, I felt the first real crack in Marlene's perfect frame job. Casey might have just handed us the thread that would unravel everything. My hands shook as I typed out a message to Sandra Klein, marking it urgent. 1 witness, 1 receipt. That's all we needed to start tearing down this house of lies. The next morning's voicemail started with static, ended with static, and filled the middle with Casey's shaky voice. I shouldn't have. My manager says, sorry. Click. Ever try to grab smoke with your bare hands? That's what chasing evidence felt like that day. I called Store 2's manager back, got 20 seconds of corporate speak about legal protocols and chain of command before she hung up. Filed the formal request, told Sandra Klein over speaker while I paced my kitchen. The linoleum squeaked under my shoes, a sound that used to bug me but now felt like the only honest thing in my life. They're stonewalling. Leave it to me. Her voice had that steel edge I was paying good money for. I'll remind them about spoliation of evidence. By noon, we had grainy security footage that might as well have been shot through a fish tank. Dark figure, wine aisle, timestamp matching our window. But the bottles were just shapes on a shelf. Could have been anything from Merlot to maple syrup. The receipt data wasn't any better. Partial SKU numbers that matched both wine and pasta sauce. Who designs these systems? I muttered at my laptop, rubbing my shoulders. They'd been in knots for days now. The coffee in my mug had that burnt taste that comes from reheating it 3 times while chasing dead ends. Mr. Evans stopped by around 2, bringing fresh eyes and a suggestion that made me want to kick myself. What about the loyalty card terminal? Most stores track individual purchases that way. God, you're right. I grabbed my phone, but my fingers hesitated over the keypad. We'd need either her card number or the last 4 digits of the card she used. Your parents might. Already tried. The words came out sharper than I meant them to. They're all about respecting Marlene's privacy now. Can't risk upsetting her when she's being so helpful about my situation. I made air quotes with fingers that wanted to curl into fists. Remember when you were a kid and time seemed to crawl? That's how these days felt. The whiteboard in my living room showed our progress, or lack of it. 3 stores circled in red, 5 security cameras marked with X's, 0 smoking guns. 18 days until the board review that could end my career. That evening, I met Mr. Evans in the parking lot of Store 3. The shadows stretched long across the asphalt, making everything look slightly wrong. Like my life these days. I can't shake this feeling, I told him, leaning against my car. This knot in my stomach that says we're missing something obvious. That time's running out. I hadn't said it out loud before, not even to Sandra. What if we can't prove it? He adjusted his glasses, taking his time before answering. Patience, he said finally. We sweep again, check everything twice. Your sister's clever, but she's not perfect. Nobody is. I was about to respond when my phone dinged. Corporate records, subject line. Transaction detail, requires verification. My hands shook as I opened the email. This could be it, the proof we needed, the thread that would unravel Marlene's whole scheme. The attachment icon blinked at me. I tapped it. Blank. The document was completely blank. You know that moment when you're running downstairs and miss a step? That hollow feeling in your stomach? That's what washed over me as I stared at the empty screen. Mr. Evans peered at my phone. Another dead end? I nodded, too tired to even swear. The knot in my stomach pulled tighter. Later, alone in my kitchen, I watched the cursor blink on yet another email to Sandra. Outside, a car alarm went off, died, then started again. A perfect soundtrack for this endless loop of almost evidence and almost proof. The weekend hit like a wet blanket. Rain drummed against my windows while I fought with my printer, which chose this perfect moment to jam for the 10th time. You ever notice how technology knows exactly when you're at your breaking point? Come on, you overpriced piece of... I yanked the paper, tray out, and a confetti of shredded receipts sprayed across my kitchen floor. Perfect. The doorbell rang just as I was considering whether throwing the printer through a window would be therapeutic. Mr. Evans stood there, looking like some kind of rescue worker with a paper bag in one hand and an old spiral notebook in the other. Thought you might need lunch, he said, holding up the bag. And a fresh approach. I could have hugged him. Instead, I just stepped aside and let him in, the smell of roast beef sandwiches making me realize I couldn't remember my last real meal. Old school, he said, patting the notebook. Sometimes paper and pencil see things computers miss. We spread everything out on my kitchen table, his notebook, my timeline printouts, the security logs. The rain kept falling outside, making the world feel smaller, more focused. Like we were the only 2 people trying to solve this puzzle. Okay, he said, drawing a clean timeline. Let's nail down exactly when Marlene was here that Sunday. I pulled up my porch camera logs. Motion detection pinged at 7:42 p.m. Again at 7:58. And your parents say she arrived at their house by 8:15? Right. I traced the route on a map. It's a 20-minute drive in good traffic. Mr. Evans made careful notes, his handwriting precise and clear, unlike my scattered scrawl. So, working backward, she had to leave here by 7:55 at the latest, which means... I leaned in, something clicking. She was only here for 26 minutes. Max, haven't you ever noticed how the smallest details sometimes crack everything open? I was staring at my bank statement when it hit me. How credit card charges often post a few minutes after you actually swipe your card. Wait, I grabbed my laptop. If Marlene bought that wine right before coming here, the timestamp would sync with the camera logs, Mr. Evans finished, catching on. My hands were already flying over the keyboard, drafting an email to Sandra. We need a targeted subpoena, not just any store records, specific transaction data from shops within a 5-mile radius, focused on that exact window. My phone buzzed. A family group message from Mom. Sometimes love means making hard choices. We're all here to support Laura when she's ready to accept help. I set the phone face down. 12 days until the board review. The weight of it pressed against my chest like a stone. Later that evening, I stood on my front porch, watching the rain turn the asphalt black and shiny. The air had that clean, wet smell that usually calms me, but tonight it just made everything feel more raw. You know those moments when giving up seems not just easier, but smarter? When you wonder if maybe everyone else is right and you're the one who's wrong? Standing there, I could almost see it. Just stop fighting. Accept whatever story they wanted to tell. Let Marlene win. God, I was tired. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Mr. Evans. Check your email. Timestamp match? I went inside, water dripping from my hair as I opened my laptop. There it was, a spreadsheet from corporate records. My cursor hovered over the attachment, and for a second I couldn't breathe. Card holder, Marlene Whitaker. I stared at that timestamp, my heart pounding. 26 minutes. She'd bought the wine at 7:36, reached my house by 7:42, and the rest. Ever had a puzzle piece click so perfectly it almost scared you? 7:36 p.m. Card swipe at the store, I muttered, marking it on my timeline. 7:42, first motion alert on my porch camera. 7:49, second ping. When she left. You know those moments when your brain just won't let something go? The timing kept nagging at me. I pulled up the traffic light patterns for that route. 3 major intersections, usually a 6-minute drive without traffic. It fit. Every single piece fit. The video quality wasn't great, but there it was. A dark crossover pulling into the parking lot, right in front of the entrance. The timestamp matched. A figure, Marlene's height, wearing what looked like her favorite paisley scarf, emerged from the driver's side. She returned minutes later, loading something into the back seat. The security camera caught her adjusting what looked exactly like the soft-sided bag Mr. Evans had described. I rewound and played it again, and again. Each time, my stomach knotted tighter. Then it hit me. The Sunday dinner. Mom and Dad sharing looks over dessert, making those careful comments about reviewing family matters and updating paperwork. I'd been so focused on my coffee, on keeping the peace, I'd missed what they were really saying. This wasn't just Marlene being Marlene. This wasn't another tantrum or cry for attention. This was calculated. She'd heard the same careful hints I had. Mom and Dad were rewriting their will. And what better way to push me out than to destroy my reputation? The one thing they valued most about me? Have you ever felt the floor just drop out from under you? That's what it was like, sitting there with all the proof laid out in front of me. 9 days until my board review. 9 days to either fix this or watch my whole life implode. My phone rang. Attorney Klein. Laura, I've arranged a meeting with your parents for tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. sharp. I gripped the phone tighter. Both of them? Yes, they've agreed to hear us out, to clear up any confusion, as they put it. And Marlene? Not invited. This needs to be focused, clean. She paused. Do you have everything organized? I looked at my dining room, which had transformed into something between a detective's office and a war room. Give me 3 hours. I spent the rest of the day printing duplicates of everything: the receipt, the security footage, stills, the timeline. Each piece went into a 3-ring binder with careful labels and color-coded tabs. Evidence A, Evidence B, Evidence C. When I finally closed that binder, it made this solid thud sound that felt like truth hitting a table. I ran my fingers over its spine, feeling the weight of everything inside. My calendar hung on the wall, tomorrow's date circled in angry red marker. The house felt too quiet. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, marking off minutes like it was counting down to something bigger than time. I rested my hand on that binder again, and I swear I could feel it humming, like all that proof was alive, just waiting to be heard. 9 days, 1 binder, 20 years of trust about to be tested. I squared the binder's edges with my palm, making sure every page lined up perfectly. Tomorrow morning couldn't come fast enough. I'd forgotten how their living room smelled. That mix of lemon furniture polish and decades-old picture frames. You know that scent certain houses get? Like memories sealed in glass? That was my parents' place all over. My hands didn't shake when I set my briefcase down. Funny how calm you can be when you're running purely on determination and 4 hours of sleep. Attorney Klein sat beside me, precise as a surgeon in her charcoal suit. My parents perched on their antique love seat like they were waiting for a verdict. Let's begin with the chain of custody, Klein started, her voice steady and professional. The wine bottle found in Ms. Whitaker's vehicle. I began laying out our exhibits on the coffee table. That old maple one Dad had refinished the summer I graduated college. Each document made a soft whisper against the wood. Exhibit A, the store receipt. I placed it centered, perfectly aligned. Exhibit B, timestamp correlation between the purchase and my home security. System. The pages formed a neat row, like bullets in a clip. You ever watch someone's face when their carefully constructed story starts cracking? That's what I saw when I laid down the security camera, still showing that familiar paisley scarf. Mom's fingers twisted in her lap. Dad's jaw tightened, just like it used to when he'd catch us in a lie as kids. Mr. Evans cleared his throat from his seat by the window. I can confirm what I saw that Sunday evening. His voice carried the weight of 40 years' friendship with my father. Marlene was at Laura's driveway, carrying a bag to her car. Mom stood up suddenly. I need to make a call. Her fingers shook as she pulled out her phone, putting it on speaker. The room held its breath while it rang. Marlene's voice filled the space, sharp with false cheer. Mom, what's up? Honey, we need to talk about that Sunday night. What about it? The edge in her tone could have cut glass. I told you what happened. Laura's been... We have the receipt, Marlene. My voice came out calmer than I felt. From the wine store, with your card number, your signature, time stamped exactly when you were at my house. That's ridiculous. I never... Attorney Klein interrupted smoothly. We have the store clerk on standby for a scheduled call. She's prepared to verify the transaction details. When the clerk's voice came through on speaker a minute later, confirming every detail down to the brand of wine and Marlene's ID check, all the oxygen seemed to leave the room at once. I slid the complete binder forward, its tabs color-coded and pristine. Then I asked the question that had been burning in my throat. What exactly were you planning to tell me about the inheritance that Sunday over dessert? The grandfather clock on the mantel ticked, once, loud as a gunshot in the silence. Mom's face went the color of old paper. Dad's hands gripped his armrests. We can fix this, Mom whispered, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Dad cleared his throat. Let's be practical about... We'll proceed with the evidence as presented, Attorney Klein cut in, her tone brooking no argument. That's when I heard the front door open. Footsteps in the hallway, quick and sharp. And there was Marlene, striding, in like she owned the room, her cheeks flushed like they always got when she was caught in a lie. I remember thinking how some moments feel like photographs being taken, every detail sharp and permanent. The sunlight streaming through Mom's lace curtains. The slight tremor in Dad's hand as he reached for his water glass. The way Marlene's scarf, The same one from the security footage hung just a bit crooked around her neck. Marlene's laugh cut through the room like breaking glass. "Oh, come on! This whole thing?" She waved her hand at our careful line of evidence. "It was supposed to be a joke, a little wake-up call. You're always so—" She gestured vaguely at my suit, my briefcase, my whole existence. "Perfect!" My stomach clenched, but I kept my face neutral. I'd learned that trick from years of board meetings. Never let them see you flinch. Attorney Klein adjusted her glasses, reminding me of a hawk fixing on its target. "Ms. Whitaker, Marlene, let's be very clear about what we're discussing. This joke has placed my client's professional standing in serious jeopardy. The legal term is defamation, and given the deliberate nature of your actions, we're looking at significant liability." Dad's face darkened. He leaned forward. "All business now. Are you threatening my daughter?" "Stating facts isn't threatening," I cut in, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "I have 30 days until a board review that could end my career. 30 days to prove I'm not the drunk driver your false police report painted me as." I looked straight at Marlene. 30 days to save the life I built while you were busy destroying yours. You know that moment when you say something you can't take back? The air gets thick, like storm weather rolling in. That's how it felt when Mr. Evans spoke up from his corner. "October 2nd, 7:36 p.m., he said, calm as Sunday morning. Store security footage shows Marlene purchasing the wine. 7:49 p.m., motion detection on Laura's porch camera. 8:12 p.m., Marlene's phone pinging off the tower by the family restaurant." He paused. "I've known this family 40 years. Never thought I'd need to keep such careful notes." My tablet chimed. The new emails. Subject line read, "Sworn Statement, Wine Merchant LLC." The clerk's signature glowed at the bottom, fresh as wet ink. Mom stood up so fast her water glass wobbled. "I need a minute." She headed for the study, Dad right behind her. Their whispered argument leaked through the walls like water under a door. I sat there, hands folded, watching dust motes dance in the afternoon light. Funny how the smallest things catch your eye in big moments. The Dr. hinges creaked, they always had, as my parents came back in. "We can make this right," Mom said, her voice trying for soothing but landing on desperate. "Privately, as a family." She glanced at Attorney Klein. "No need for outside involvement. We can arrange compensation. That won't be sufficient," Klein replied, shaking her head slowly. "The damage to my client's reputation." "Just tell us what you want," Dad interrupted. I leaned forward. "Start by retracting your statement to the police. Tell them you were wrong about my drinking problem." The quotation marks hung heavy in my voice. Mom and Dad exchanged looks. That familiar dance of silent communication that parents perfect over decades. "We need time to consider," Dad began. 9 a.m. tomorrow, Klein cut in, closing her briefcase with a snap. "That's when I file the formal complaint. Every detail, every exhibit, becomes public record." The old hallway clock chimed 8 times. 8:03 when I checked my watch. Always 3 minutes fast, that clock. Dad stood up, his shoulders straight like when he used to lecture us as kids. "Don't do this, Laura. Some bells can't be unrung." I rose to match him, feeling the weight of every spreadsheet I'd ever balanced, every deadline I'd ever met, every moment I'd been the responsible one, while Marlene spun chaos and called it living. "Watch me," I said, and picked up my briefcase. Behind me, as the door swung shut, I heard Marlene's whisper, sharp with fury. "You'll regret this." Ever notice how courthouses smell like every important document you've ever signed, all at once? That morning, I could taste manila folders and coffee lid plastic in the air as we walked through security. My heels clicked against the marble floor, steady, measured, just like my heart rate. You learn to control that stuff when you're in finance. Numbers don't add up right when your hands are shaking. Attorney Klein had that look she gets when she's about to serve an ace in tennis. Yeah, I'd done my homework on her before hiring her. She's the kind who plays to win, even on weekends. 9:12, she announced, checking her watch as the clerk stamped our complaint. The sound echoed like a judge's gavel. Perfect timing. I pulled out my phone and opened the HR portal while we waited for copies. My fingers didn't hesitate as I uploaded our evidence packet. You know that feeling when you've triple-checked your work and know it's solid? That's what gave me the steady hands. Request for interim relief pending board review, I muttered, hitting send. Your move, compliance. The response came faster than expected. Our compliance officer, Martinez, was always efficient. Supplemental affidavit required, the email read. I nudged Klein, who was already pulling up the template on her tablet. They're covering their bases, she said. Good. Means they're taking it seriously. My phone buzzed again. This time it was from my parents' lawyer, some carefully worded retraction that danced around actually admitting anything wrong. You'd think they were describing a misunderstanding about a parking spot, not a deliberate attempt to destroy my career. Not good enough, Klein said, reading over my shoulder. She was already drafting a counter-proposal. They need to own the lie. All of it. I watched her add phrases like, knowingly false statement, and retract previous testimony regarding alleged alcohol abuse. Each word felt like a brick being laid in a wall of truth. The real surprise came at lunch. My phone lit up with a message from the board. Chair. Special hearing scheduled. Day 5. New evidence to be considered. 5 days. Not 30. My stomach did a little flip. The good kind, like when you find out you actually can fix something you thought was broken. While I was digesting that news, another email popped up. The police department had received my records request. Attached was an internal memo noting conflicting witness statements. I forwarded it to Klein with just a emoji. Sometimes less is more. My mother's message came during the afternoon lull. We need to talk. Just 4 words, but I could hear them in her voice, that tone she used when she knew she'd backed the wrong horse but wasn't quite ready to admit it. Marlene, though? She went full Marlene. You'll regret this. Classic her, all threat, no substance. I stared at that message for a full minute, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I closed the app without responding. Some silences say more than words ever could. Back home, I added a new tab to my evidence binder. Retractions. The label maker hummed as it printed out the neat black letters. Everything in its place, every detail documented. My sister never did understand that part of me. How I find comfort in organization, in having all my ducks in a row. The wall calendar caught my eye as I headed to bed. I'd stuck a post-it note on. Tomorrow's square. Bring key exhibits. Wear calm. Funny how you can wear an emotion like a suit of armor, isn't it? I set my alarm for 6, laid out my shoes by the door, the sensible ones that mean business without trying too hard. My phone buzzed one last time. Meeting confirmation for tomorrow. You'd think I'd be nervous, but all I felt was ready. Sometimes the hardest part isn't fighting back. It's waiting until you have all your ammunition, lined up just right. I'd been in our company's boardroom hundreds of times, but never from this side of the table. The morning light bounced off the glass walls, making everything feel sharper, cleaner somehow. You could have heard a paperclip drop. The board chair, Dr. Reynolds, who'd interviewed me 12 years ago, cleared her throat. We're here to review new evidence regarding the incident. Ms. Klein, please proceed. I watched my attorney stand, cool as January. She had this way of commanding attention without asking for it. Thank you. We'll begin with the chain of custody of the wine bottle in question. My hands stayed perfectly still in my lap as she walked them through it. The timeline appeared on the screen behind her, precise, unforgiving. Each timestamp matched up like pieces of a puzzle I'd been assembling in my living room for weeks. The receipt, Klein continued, shows purchase at 7:36 p.m. by Marlene Whitaker. The document filled the screen. Note the credit card information and signature verification. Martinez, our compliance officer, leaned forward slightly. I'd worked with him for years. He was the type who could spot a decimal point out of place at 50 paces. His eyes narrowed at the timestamp. Following the purchase, Klein continued, pulling up the parking lot footage. We have video confirmation of Ms. Marlene Whitaker removing a soft-sided bag from her vehicle at 7:42 p.m. Mr. Evans? My father's friend stood up from his seat along the wall. His testimony was brief, but devastating in its clarity. I observed Marlene Whitaker approach Laura's vehicle with that bag at approximately 7:49 p.m. She was on speakerphone at the time. The room shifted slightly when the parents' retraction appeared on screen. It had taken 3 revisions to get the language right, but there it was in black and white. We acknowledge providing false information regarding Laura Whitaker's alleged alcohol use. Remember that feeling when you're balancing your checkbook and everything finally adds up? That's what happened in that room. The pieces aligned, the truth squared up, and you could feel the weight of it settle over everyone. Dr. Reynolds spoke first after the presentation ended. The evidence appears conclusive. Martinez? Our compliance officer nodded. The timeline is airtight. The documentation exceeds our standard of proof. He paused, shuffling some papers. I recommend immediate reinstatement with full back pay and benefits. The vote was unanimous. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until I had to sign the reinstatement papers in the hallway afterward. The air smelled like warm toner from the copier down the hall. Funny how normal things can feel extraordinary in moments like that. Klein touched my arm as we headed toward the elevator. The defamation suit is already having an impact. Marlene's lawyer reached out about settlement after the panel mentioned reputational harm. I nodded, thinking about the family attorney's update about the trust. The conduct clause my parents had insisted on, the one Marlene probably never bothered to read, had kicked in. Ironic. Really. She'd tried to grab my inheritance and ended up losing her own share instead. The parking lot felt different as I walked to my car. Warmer, clearer. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small silver keychain I'd bought myself the day before. A little lock, simple but solid. Symbol of a life I'd secured on my own terms. The metal warmed in my palm as I stood there, letting it all sink in. The double hit Marlene had taken. Legal. Exposure plus losing her inheritance. That wasn't my goal when this started. But maybe it was Justice's goal all along. I opened my car door, the familiar creak grounding me in the present. That old ache of betrayal was still there, but it felt more like a scar than a wound now. Something that marked me, but didn't define me. The silver lock caught the sun as I held it up for a moment. Truth always outlasts betrayal, I said quietly, and meant it.